Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ochify's Game Business Podcast. I'm your host, Ochify. I'm, let's call it a 20-year veteran, just an old guy, really, from the business side of the game industry, here to share my analysis on industry news and things I've seen and heard. I really believe that in this day and age, it's not just about what you know, but having your own perspective to see the world. That's what this show is all about. Providing better insights for everyone involved in business. But hey, talking shop 24/7 is exhausting, right? My friends call me the king of East Asian casual gourmet, which is really just a fancy way of saying I'm a huge foodie. So I'll be chatting about some great food stuff too. On today's episode, we've got industry news, plus I was just in Taiwan last week. So I thought it would be interesting to dive into the Taiwanese game industry and naturally talk about some incredible Taiwanese food. All right, let's jump in. Game business topic, Steam Next Fest, October 2025. All right, our game business topic. This October, Steam held its Next Fest. They do this about 3 times a year. I saw an article about it on Game Discover Co. Full disclosure, I pull a lot of info from them, but only because they're such an excellent news source. Anyway, for those who don't know, Next Fest is where devs release demos, and if you join the event, you get featured by Steam. I actually have experience with this, putting a game I worked on into the fest. We got a ton of people coming specifically for the event, and it massively boosted our wish lists. And when your wish lists go up, it means, well, if you make the game you promised, your sales are much more predictable. So I was looking at which titles got the biggest wish list boost this time around. So the top highest wish list increase during event list. Number 1 was Reanimaru. This is that horror adventure from the creators of Little Nightmares. Looks like it's being published by THQ Nordic. So, it's an indie, but coming from a major publisher. According to the estimates, it gained 170,000 wish lists. I was curious where it started from. Let me check. Wow. Okay, it already had 700,000 wish lists and jumped to 870,000. This thing is already massively anticipated. To be honest, I skipped this one and played some others. Next up was Everwind. This one's from Bohemia Interactive in the Czech Republic. It's a survival RPG. You have this ship floating in the sky that's your base, but also your vehicle and fortress. You build, craft, and survive. Sounds cool. It added 135,234 wish lists. I'm checking the site Gamalytic for this. And yeah, this one also started high, like 650,000, and just built on top of that. But the one I really focused on was Final Sentence. It's a typing game. How cool is that? It came in third, adding 130,000 wish lists. And this is a real jump. It went from around 80,000 to over 200,000. You know, in the industry, we have this rule of thumb that 200,000 wish lists before release means you're pretty safe. You'll probably sell well. This demo basically got them over that line. Amazing. So, I played it. And let me tell you, this game won on its concept alone. You're gathered in a room with other players. It's multiplayer, and it totally feels like Squid Game. And you have to type, but there's a guy standing in front of you with a gun. You already know where this is going, right? You make a mistake, you get shot. It's high stakes, life or death typing. How can you not want to try that? Of course I had to play it, and it was exactly as awesome as it sounds. And because it's multiplayer, if another player screws up, you might get shot too. It's pure Squid Game. Everybody loves this kind of tension. I'm really looking forward to the release. If I were managing this, I don't know the development cost, but I'd make it as cheap as possible and just push for volume. It's going to be a hit. Anyway, it just shows that unless you're a huge AAA title everyone already knows, Steam Next Fest is an incredibly effective event. It's so well designed. Final Sentence is a demo. It's free, so if you have a PC, definitely go try it. A look at the Taiwanese game industry. Okay, next topic, the Taiwanese game industry. You don't hear many people talking about this, do you? But I realized I've been involved with the Taiwanese industry for about 20 years now. Back when I was at Capcom, I actually established the Capcom Taiwan subsidiary and served as its first president for about 3 years. So I've got some experience there, though I'm not an expert on everything. This is just my personal take, okay? Like a lot of Asia, its origins are really in PC online games back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Of course, Japanese console games were always there, first as grey market imports, then officially arcade games too. But when we talk about games made in Taiwan, it really starts with PC Online MMORPG. What happened was Korean-made PC Online games started being exported everywhere to Taiwan, Japan, China. And in that boom, the Taiwanese companies that handled the operations and payment systems, companies like Softworld and Gamania, grew massively and went public. Today, they're still powerhouses in marketing and payment processing in Asia. Then you had Taiwanese developers like X Legend who started making their own games. I remember they made these very Mo-style MMORPG that got really popular even in Japan, so the local market really started heating up around the 2000s. At the same time, you had the rise of work-for-hire studios. Back in the PlayStation 2 era, 3D development costs were exploding. So American and European companies started outsourcing to Asia, and companies that took on that contract work like XPEC grew big. They've since broken up, but they were a key player. So, in 2012, we established Capcom Taiwan. The market there was, and still is, huge for PC, online, and mobile games. I think on Android, it's like the 5th or 6th largest market in the world. Our goal was to localize and operate our PC and mobile titles from there as a hub for Asia. We had a development division and a business division. I left Capcom before we could really get into full-scale original development, but that's how the market was built. Then everything changed again. The iPhone arrived 2007/2008, and by 2015, globally competitive games started pouring out of China from companies like Tencent. Those games, plus big Korean titles from Netmarble, started to dominate the Taiwanese market. As a result, the number of Taiwanese-made games started to shrink. See, the Chinese games had already been tested and polished in their massive home market before they were exported. Taiwan's population is about 23 million. Maybe 1/6 of Japan's. It's just not big enough to test and polish a game in the same way. Now, the market for playing games is still strong. When the Nintendo Switch came out in 2017, it did really well in Taiwan, so the console market, which was always there, actually grew and stabilized. But for Taiwanese companies making and selling their own games, it got tougher. The contract work studios, though, they continue to do well. Those ex-XPEC folks I mentioned, they formed a new studio called NeoBards, and they're the ones making the new Silent Hill F for Konami. This leads to an insight I had back at Capcom Taiwan. I wanted our studio to be able to create original games, but I felt it was difficult. And my conclusion was this: Taiwanese developers, in my opinion, aren't specialized in creating from 0 to 1. But they are world-class at going from 1 to 10 or 10 to 100. If you give them an existing concept and a clear goal, their quality and speed are incredible. But starting from a blank page, that's just not their specialty. Think about it. Look at TSMC, the semiconductor giant. They are a foundry. Their business is making things for others. Back in the 90s, their genius move was publishing their manufacturing process, making it super easy for anyone to design a chip and have them build it. They are masters at execution for partners like Nvidia. They're not designing the 0 to 1 product, they're perfecting the 1 to 100 manufacturing. I was talking about this with a Japanese friend over dinner, and he suggested a hypothesis. It's their history. Taiwan has only really been a democracy where people can proactively shape their own destiny for about 30 years. Before that, it was a martial law. Before that, Japanese rule. Before that, the Qing dynasty. The history is one of being ruled by others. So this idea of proactively starting something new is, historically speaking, a very new cultural muscle. This isn't a criticism at all. It's a historical insight. It just means their strength lies in taking something and making it better, rather than inventing it from scratch. But that said, things are changing. Today, you don't need a huge budget to make a hit. We have indies, and I see a lot of unique, interesting indie games coming from Taiwan that are doing well. I'm excited about that. When it comes to taking on new challenges, they have a flexibility that's maybe even greater than in Japan. Oh, and you can see this change in the Taipei game show. Of all the game shows, I think it has changed the most dramatically. I first went in 2004. Back then, it was 100% PC online games, huge booths for Lineage and Ragnarok Online. Then I went back in the 2010s and it had completely flipped to being a mobile game show. I was away from the industry for a bit, and when I started going again in the 2020s, it had flipped again. Now it's a console show. This year, Nintendo had the biggest booth. It just shows how adaptable the market is. The people are flexible, they have a deep understanding of Japanese culture, and they are wonderful to work with. Anyway, that's my overview of the Taiwanese game industry. If you want to know more, hey, take me out to dinner. Gourmet Corner, Tainan's Neuro-tang beef soup. All right, time for the gourmet info. So, I mentioned I was in Taiwan, but not just Taipei. I went south to Tainan. Tainan is often called the Kyoto of Taiwan. It's old, full of history, and the food culture is completely unique. I have a lot of recommendations, but today I want to talk about one thing, Neuro-tang, beef soup. Now, this isn't just any beef soup. What makes it special? Okay, the beef is raised locally in southern Taiwan. It's processed late at night or right at dawn. And then, this is the key, it is not refrigerated. It's delivered fresh, unchilled, to the restaurant. The shop slices it thin, they have liver and other cuts too, and puts it raw into a bowl. Then they pour scalding hot broth, probably beef bone broth, right over it. It cooks the meat instantly, but just han-nama, like rare to medium rare. Just hearing that sounds amazing, right? This is pretty common in Taiwanese markets, by the way. I don't think they refrigerate the pork in the traditional markets either. I've seen it at 6 a.m., just half a pig, from head to tail, laid out on the table, and they're butchering it right there. They use every part, the skin, the head. It's a different way of thinking about fresh meat. Anyway, back to that Tainan beef soup. If you're a real foodie, if you're the kind of person who reads Oishinbo and obsesses over the ultimate way to eat beef, you have to go to Tainan and try this. There are tons of shops serving it, and Tainan has so much more. Incredible seafood, the famous milkfish, sabahi, oyster-shaved ice. Oh, there's this ice cream shop in the suburbs run by a 90-year-old woman using an organic recipe and a 70-year-old machine. It's just full of these unique, wonderful places. If you're curious, hit me up. I'll give you the details. Closing. All right, that's about all the time we have. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can find me on X at @yuichiochi, or if you know me personally, just send me a message. If I got something wrong or if you have a topic you want me to cover, please let me know. Today is October 26, 2025. I'll be back in about 2 weeks with more industry news plus alpha. I'm thinking I'll look at the Steam rankings for games released in October, pick one that looks interesting, play it, and share my review. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you next time.